Hi, this video is July 2024 bouldering. This month, I think I just did a bunch of slabs and I had some fun while doing so. I also remembered to take a photo of the grading system. I went bouldering twice this month and I thought I was going to be able to do 3 times, but I had a bunch of school stuff come up, so I had to deal with that instead. The gym was way too far to easily spend time there. I can also show off some of the artworks I made using the magazines I brought all the way back in April. I'm also really confused about how people are still watching the May video. On the 10th, the session started off a bit icky because I heard about a kid who injured themselves from landing on the mats with their arms first. And I'm not going to expand on that, but I noted it down. For the climbing, I do mostly kind of easy and slabby climbs on this day. This was also during the school holidays. The first climb I wrote about was a slab on the first wall you see when you walk into the gym. I didn't record any videos on this, but I did take a photo. I struggled with the start for a bit because I didn't know what I was supposed to do, but then I figured out that I just had to push myself up and bring my leg really close to my body to get on top of that hold on the right. The part after that was also a tiny bit difficult, but near the end, I would have my left hand out on a hold, and I didn't know how I would get my right arm around and on a hold without accidentally pushing myself off of the wall. I eventually got it. Apparently, I topped this in only 5 attempts. I swear I would have done more. The next climb, I tried to do that pink cave problem again, but I think that's a bit off from my skill level and definitely off from my strength. I tried to do the thing again where I would bump my right hand from the first sloper to the second one, and that still didn't work. And when I did it, the whole right side of my torso got stretched a bit further than it should have, and that felt quite scary, but I'm fine. I only did 3 attempts on that climb before moving on. The last climb I did and wrote about was pretty fun. I was only going to have a few goes at it because I thought it was going to be way too hard, but it was actually quite simple and short. It was a slab and it kind of had that feeling of climbing without hands, but there was actually not much of that. I got to record a video on it, and it was the only video I recorded because I topped it in this one. It was mainly the start that was quite difficult. I found everything else to be quite easy, and there weren't many moves anyway. I think I knew about the volume smearing and stepping up on that foothold kind of thing right away, but I just wasn't able to stick it for a few attempts. And yeah, after that it was just a bunch of tiptoeing to the end. I remember the holds not being the greatest, but they were still easy to grab onto, and I did it after 7 attempts. I went home after that climb, and that's all for the 10th. On the 22nd, I spent way too much time on a single slab problem. The journal is mostly on that one slab climb, but there's another entry which is quite quick and small. I did a bunch more climbs other than those 2, but the 2 I wrote about were the only ones I found challenging and or interesting. Aside from the 2 climbs that I wrote about, I did some other climbs which I either flashed or topped really quickly as they weren't very difficult. One of the climbs was the pink one on the wall shown in the image that should be on the screen. It was pretty juggy, and that's all I remember of it. It does kind of look like a ladder problem though I don't remember it being like that. The other climb was the green slab on this slab wall. It was slabby and the holds were very weird, but the nature of the slab climb made it easy to get through. I remember this one having some weird steps at some point. It was definitely not something like just grabbing one hold and then the next. I think the beta for that problem might be on the gym's Instagram page. No, it was, I think I still found it pretty simple. Moving on to the second and smaller entry I made, it was on a climb that demanded quite some strength, which I didn't have, but I was still able to top it by trying to speed through it. The start was really simple, but the part with the big hold kinda close to the end was a bit difficult to go through and position myself well, because that hold I grabbed was just horrible. I think most of the ones after that are also quite bad, but the top hold was just fine, and that felt like a release, even though I was only struggling for like 3 seconds or something, maybe even less. Now onto the first climb I wrote about. I spent way too much time on this problem, but that was only because I was extremely sure that it was going to get reset by the next time I come over. I haven't been to the gym since the 20th, but it has definitely been reset. I really wish I'd started working on this problem earlier, because I think it was a really interesting slab. And it was a grade 5, which may have been a tiny bit high for my level, but I don't think it was impossible. It was a very long slab. The main problem I had with this problem was lowering myself down to that low volume, and also repeating the climb 20 times definitely got annoying by the end and kind of ran through my patience. I think it was the placement of my feet, but it also would have been the orientation of my leg that would get me off the wall a lot, because I think I made it really easy for myself to just get kicked out of the wall without meaning to. Like with my leg, I could easily just extend it, and then it would be like the same as kicking the wall. There were a few times where I got to have my left leg pointing the right way and my right foot down in that low volume, but then my fingers would just slip off of the hold, and that would throw me off the wall, and that was quite annoying. And that handhold would get pretty high by the time I got down, so I don't think there was much I could do. I think in my early attempts I would do a foot swap on that second volume, but I got around doing that quite quickly. I did 21 attempts and I recorded the last one, but that one ended way too short, and I just didn't want to do the problem anymore after that. After that climb, I would just do all the climbs that I talked about before, and that's all for the 20th. Back in April, there was a garage sale at Boulder Project. I still miss you. And I got some magazines which I would use for an art project. The art project was making some collage pieces, which then we would paint one of them. I finished it at the end of June, though it's actually unfinished, but I forgot to bring my visual diary home when the school term ended, and now I'm here making this segment to show her off instead of putting it in June 2024 bouldering. I only needed one magazine because that had enough images, and I think it was the only good one for the project. There were plenty of wide shots and rock faces and landscapes, which made for some pretty good backgrounds, but there was no collage I made that had a focus on the climbing hobby. I'll show all the collages that I made. They were supposed to kind of follow the way of surrealism, if that makes sense, but I tried to give my artworks a bit of narrative or reason for why things are as they are, and I don't think that's how surrealism normally works. There were still some bits that didn't make a whole lot of sense, but I thought about why I should put every part in where they are, like the food items bordering that silhouette of the rock in the first piece, or the pink man talking about how beautiful the view is. That dialogue is actually in the background image. And the third art piece is just shit. I didn't know how I should do that. The second collage I made was definitely my favorite, and I chose to paint that one. But we weren't gonna paint the entire thing. That would be way too hard. So I painted the left half of it. And I'm not a painter. That was my first time painting. And I spent a lot of time on it. I found the clouds to be the hardest part of the painting, and I think I spent most of my time trying to do a good job with that. And I think it ended up pretty decent. But there are some parts that have pretty much zero detail. But I think it's just the entire background with the terrain and stuff and kind of the box thing up in the clouds. And that's actually all I have to say about the painting. In my script, I put etc. in this section, but I have no idea what else I have to talk about that is bouldering related. That's it for this part, and this sentence was also scripted. This month, I got to do some slabs, which I like doing, and I finally got to show off the art stuff that I'd been working on since around April or May. And speaking of May, I don't even understand how and why people are watching that May bouldering video. It's not even relevant anymore, and the shit is just centered around me. That's all it is. But that's all I have to say, and it's the end of July 2024 bouldering. Goodbye.